Rethink Food. We're excited to welcome Chip Wade, the CEO of Union Square Hospitality Group. I had the pleasure of meeting Chip in 2020, handing out meals with Brookfield Properties in the Bronx. We're absolutely thrilled to have you here today and super grateful you made the time for us. I'm really excited about Union Square's culture.
Thank you.
And when I was like a young cook and coming up and knowing about it and hearing stories about places like Gramercy Tavern and Union Square Cafe as just like a really, really great place to work, surrounded by great people, and your retention rates are incredible and the people have been around. And that's kind of what I wanted to dig into a little bit. But first I wanted to really hear about your journey and kind of how you got here.
Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you. This, I think, the second time I've been in your offices in the past 4 or 5 months. You guys do great work. Always impressed with your people and the culture that you have here. My background, my story is fairly simple, right? Not too dissimilar from most 15-year-old kids. I got my first job at a fast food restaurant. I was raised by a single mom outside of Philadelphia, and I both wanted to work and needed to work. And so at 15, I walked into the neighborhood Dunkin' Donut. My initial job was to clean the toilets, clean the parking lots, and mop the floors, and that was it. I was a sophomore in high school. I ended up staying there my entire sophomore, junior, and then senior year. And almost every year, the manager gave me increasingly more responsibilities. I went from cleaning the toilets to learning how to work the cash register, servicing the guests. I learned how to finish donuts, and then I learned how to actually make donuts, right?
Oh, wow.
By the way, when you're 16 years old, you get all the free donuts you want. Like, that's the coolest thing in the world.
That's amazing.
It was amazing. The manager, I was 15, turning 16. He was 31. I distinctly remembering, like, wow, this guy is old, right? My grandfather was in my life. I had my uncles were in my life, but there wasn't a dominant male figure in my life every day. So that manager became the dominant male figure in my life. Yeah. And it was upon his counsel, he said to me, I think you should go to culinary school. I had no idea what a culinary school was.
Yeah.
But on his advice, I went to Johnson & Wales, which was the next chapter of my hospitality and culinary school career. Graduated from Johnson & Wales, then went and got a bachelor's in hotel and restaurant administration from a small school outside of Philadelphia called Widener University.
Nice.
And then when I graduated from college, I went to TGI Fridays. So this is 1985. TGI Fridays was the dominant kind of granddaddy of casual dining.
Yep.
And they were the dominant player there. And I spent 14 years of my career with TGI Fridays in a variety of different roles. First as a restaurant manager, later as a GM, later an area director. A big move came when Fridays asked me to move into HR. And so I spent about 6 years of my professional career as an HR generalist, ultimately me becoming head of domestic HR for TGI Fridays.
Oh, wow.
And which was very cool. Around that time, so this was 1997, I decided to go back and get my master's degree, and I have a master's degree from the University of Texas. In 1999, I left Fridays and moved on to Darden Restaurants. And at Darden, I was hired as a director of a remodel, design and construction project. So I had now moved into my fourth discipline, first being culinary, second being operations, third being HR, and then development, real estate, design, construction. And I spent 7 years in that discipline.
Yeah.
In 2023, I got a call from a search firm that said Roger Berkowitz and Legal Seafoods would love to talk to you. Roger and Legal Seafoods is this iconic upmarket seafood chain based out of Boston. I became the chief operating officer for that historic, iconic company. The owner and I did not see eye to eye. And ultimately, I rejoined Darden Restaurants in 2006, first as a zone vice president for Red Lobster. I ran, I and my team, 95 restaurants from Wilmington, Delaware, all the way down to Aiken, South Carolina.
How many employees is 95 restaurants?
So 95 restaurants is almost about 11,000 employees.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. So it was a great opportunity. I was in that role for 6 years and was fortunate to be elevated to EVP and COO. I moved to Orlando, and my job was to oversee 705 restaurants in North America as the EVP and COO.
I got to ask, how many is that?
So at the time, there were 56,000 employees at Red Lobster.
Holy smokes.
With obviously the vast majority of them being in the field. We had 25,000 servers
for sure
alone. So I was in that role as EVP and COO for 6 years. I left in 2018. I was very fortunate, Matt, to take about a year off.
Nice.
And I got reconnected with my wife, who's my best friend. And it's a really great experience where you can take 10, 12 months off. We'd have lunch in the middle of the afternoon. Our kids were starting college.
Yeah.
9 months into that, I began thinking about my next chapter, and that landed me here in New York with Danny Meyer's USHG.
What a story, man.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Thank you.
Many questions just from that. So I
Yeah.
might not get past the first question here, but I just wanted, TGI Fridays during that time.
Yeah.
It was an innovative restaurant,
Yeah,
right?
very much.
It's a new brand. Everybody was excited about it. It was scalable. It was working. What were some of the what was innovative back then? What were the things that you guys were doing that people were like, wow, this is completely different than?
Well, first of all, Fridays was the granddaddy, if you will, and I keep using that term, but they were the first casual dining chain ever.
Yep.
Fridays opened in 1965. The first Red Lobster opened in 1969. The first Cracker Barrel opened in 1969. So those three brands essentially created the casual dining segment. What Fridays did innovatively was a couple of things. First around food and menu innovation. So it was a scratch kitchen.
Oh.
And the menu evolved 2-3 times a year.
Every Fridays was a scratch kitchen?
Every Fridays was a scratch, hand cutting French fries.
Really?
Baked potatoes, the potato skins, you would literally bake 100 baked potatoes, scoop out the middle to make potato skins, right?
Yeah.
Fridays was making all of their dressings, all of their soups, all of their salad dressings in the box. And as you know, the restaurant business, they're part service industry, but it's a manufacturing plant, right?
Yeah.
When cooks are coming in at 6 o'clock in the morning. And then innovatively, Dan Scoggins was this brilliant entrepreneur who essentially, he didn't found Fridays, but he launched it. Alan Stillman started TGI Fridays here in New York.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so, but Dan was innovative from a service perspective, from a wine and beverage perspective. Every year we would get cases upon cases of French Beaujolais wine.
Really?
And we would sell, yeah, it was amazing.
I love that.
So Fridays was doing a lot of innovative things around culinary, around wine, and around service.
It's so fascinating.
I learned so much from Fridays.
It's so fascinating. It is incredible how they have maintained that brand still this day, and I'm a big fan, actually.
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
like that. And Darden too. Darden has done an amazing job too. Actually, one of the best jobs I ever had was as Capital Grille.
Oh, right.
I worked at the Hot App Station and Garmager and that's place too. I was shocked because I think people look at chains and they go, oh, they get everything frozen and whatever else. But we made every cake in house, every sauce in house. The only thing we didn't make in house was a lobster bisque.
Got it.
But everything
Got it.
else, we made in house, and it's such an incredible. And I learned so much because I think in those restaurants where you have people who are focused on HR and focused on training, they have the resources to train people.
Right.
The little mom and pop spot, God bless them, but they're
Yeah.
learning from the guy who learned from the guy who had the job back in the day or whatever. But there was a lot of resources and training that I don't think I ever would have got at any other restaurant that I got at Capital Grille.
Yeah, Darden today, I believe they operate 12 brands.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost a $13 billion a year enterprise.
Yeah.
And when I was there, Clarence Otis was the chairman and CEO. What I got from Darden was structure, scale, discipline, and what it takes to build the right infrastructure that would enable you to grow, right?
Yeah.
The right tech platforms, the right marketing support, the right finance support. TGI Fridays was a restaurant operating company. Darden was a brand building company, and their brands just happened to be restaurants.
Elaborate
does
on
that make
that.
sense?
Yeah, no, elaborate on that a little bit. That's interesting.
Well, the history, Darden Restaurant started in 1969 by a man, Bill Darden.
Yeah.
Bill Darden was this widely successful, he was one of the first KFC franchisees, he was one of the first Howard Johnson's franchisees, and he created a concept called the Green Frog in Orlando. This is an independent in the late 60s. And in 1969, he created Red Lobster. It scaled to about 7 or 10 Red Lobsters, and he sold it to General Mills.
Oh, really?
So the DNA of Darden is that it was owned by a consumer packaged goods company
Oh, interesting.
up until 1995.
Yeah.
So the infrastructure to scale a brand, whether it was Yoplait yogurt or Cheerios or Olive Garden,
Yeah.
it was that build the right infrastructure, systematize everything,
Yep.
and then that would allow it to scale. So
Then
that's
rinse
what I
and
mean.
repeat and rinse and repeat. Yeah.
Exactly right. And what the last thing that's is interesting, and it's not bad or good, is it was just their model. Because they were owned by consumer packaged goods, they spent heavily in marketing, right?
Yeah.
Advertising and TV and marketing. And the same playbook that you use
Right.
to sell Cheerios, you sell Olive Garden.
Which led to all the Olive Garden, endless breadsticks, constant commercials. Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
The promotion wheel, right? You think
Yeah.
about Olive Garden, Red Lobster followed a similar playbook. So limited time offers,
Yep.
endless shrimp, lobster fest.
Yep.
So that's the power of scale in a brand and a marketing engine.
Oh, wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I want to switch a little bit more to culture, because I think that's just like more and more we think about that. It's just always such an important thing. But I think as, Rethink, we're focused a lot on automation and trying to systematize things here so that when we pass our tax credit, we can scale
Yeah.
more and more and more. And so we're spending a lot of time thinking and talking about culture. So what are some of the ways that you focus and intentionally focus on fostering a good culture, creating a good culture? What are tips,
Yeah.
tricks, hacks, whatever you want to call them, that we can do and learn from you?
So let me share this whimsical kind of analogy that we occasionally use to talk about culture.
Yeah.
And I can't take credit for this, but Danny shared this story with me. Culture is like a newborn baby, right? And a newborn, you have to feed it 7-8 times a day.
Yeah.
You can never take your eye off a newborn.
Yeah.
And when it makes a mess, you have to clean it up right away. Right? And so that's, when I talk about culture, we talk about it every day. We work and watch it every single day.
Yeah.
And when there's a mess, we try to clean it up as quickly as possible. Now, the culture comes to life
Yeah.
via a set of 6 behaviors that we have. And so we talk about these behaviors. Leaving your campsite better than you found it is a behavior around standards and organization and cleanliness.
Oh, I love that.
We talk about this culture of wanting to win with a high degree of humility, right? And so we talk about culture with an understanding that the culture comes to life by the behaviors and actions of your employees.
Yeah.
And when your culture is really great, you're celebrating and rewarding the right behaviors,
Yeah.
and at the same time taking the courageous step to redirect anyone whose behavior is off point or off center, if you will, right? Every organization in the world, whether it's USHG, Walt Disney World, Target, every company has a set of core values,
Yep.
a set of behaviors, a purpose, a mission. The most successful companies have a very narrow gap between thought and action. The thought is the core purpose and belief and behaviors, and the action is what comes to life every day. Now let me give you another example, how
Yeah.
I think about this at times. I think about this from the gap between thought and action. So many Americans in late December have a thought, which is, I want to lose weight next year.
Yep.
That's a thought. We make these
Resolution.
resolutions, right?
Resolution,
So,
yes, yeah.
thank you. We make these resolutions.
Yeah.
I made a resolution in late December, I kid you not, to eat less ice cream. I
Yeah.
love ice cream. I could sit and eat a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream.
Yeah.
That's a thought.
Yeah.
The thought that an individual makes about their lives and what's important to them.
Yeah.
The gap happens when it's February 14th and you no longer go to the gym.
Yeah.
So that's a wide gap. The thought and the gap, if it's narrow, you're going to have a brilliant and strong culture. To have a vibrant and evolving and growing culture, leaders often have to get comfortable making uncomfortable decisions,
Yeah.
right? And so usually that uncomfortable decision is centered around people who are not living up to the behaviors or values that you aspire to have and post along your website and on the office bulletin boards.
Yeah.
I've been running restaurants and in the industry for 40 years.
Yeah.
And you've been in restaurants as well.
Yeah.
Every restaurant has 3 or 4 knucklehead employees who shouldn't work there.
100%.
Every restaurant.
Yep.
But for whatever reason, some leaders who don't value the culture allow those employees to stay on board.
Yeah.
And all the other employees know that knucklehead employee who's usually is late, his uniform is messy,
Yep.
he looks like an unmade bed.
Yep.
But management tolerates those behaviors.
Yeah.
To have a vibrant and strong culture, you have to have the intestinal fortitude to politely ask those people to go work elsewhere, right?
That's a challenging thing to do.
That is the
Challenging
challenging thing to do. I was telling, can I tell this story?
Please, this is great.
I'm going to apologize in advance. I was a zone VP for Red Lobster.
Right.
95 restaurants. We had 2 restaurants in Charleston, South Carolina.
Love Charleston.
It's a wonderful city. The first Red Lobster opened in Waycross, Georgia, and they migrated north. So these restaurants in Charleston had to be there for 27, 26 years.
Yeah.
So I'm the vice president. There's a director that reports to me, and below him is the GM. And we had a long tenured GM that my predecessor and other people just tolerated.
Yeah.
All the employees knew that he was a knucklehead GM.
Yep.
If you looked at the performance of the business on paper, that restaurant was always in the bottom quartile, always. I would visit, the standards were not upheld, and the culture was not right. So after, 7, 8, 9 months, myself and the director, we made the decision that we were going to fire the GM. That's a difficult and unpleasant decision.
Yeah.
So we fired the GM on a Friday afternoon, and then we called an all-restaurant meeting Saturday morning.
Yeah.
105 employees, and we shared with them the news. And they're like, okay, great.
Yeah.
Like no one's like crying or upset. People are like, okay, great.
Yeah, makes sense.
Here's the interesting thing, and I get emotional talking about this. There's an older woman, a black woman.
Yeah.
She had been a server there for 20 plus years. She gently grabbed my forearm and said, young man, can I speak to you? And I said, yes. And so she gently kind of like escorted me to the corner of the restaurant. She looked me dead in the eye. And she said, young man, what took you so goddamn long?
I love that.
She went on to say that my quality of life
Yeah.
is based upon the quality of leaders.
Yes.
When I work and he works, I make 20% less in tips because he's never around. The shifts usually crash and burn.
Yeah.
He tolerates the wrong behaviors. And she just said, what took you so long?
What'd you say?
I apologize. I had no excuse. All I could do was apologize.
Yeah.
But that story illustrates the power and the importance of making courageous decisions to keep the culture alive and at the right standard that the organization wants.
Do you find that 2 questions before I forget them, but the first one is, do you find that outputs and metrics, like when you go and dig in and you see the bottom 20% Red Lobsters, you go in there, you check everybody out, that it is mainly a management issue, that it is mainly a culture problem that is driving that down? If it's outside of, the poor location, or they moved the freeway down, something that's like clearly not that. Was that the main thing? And then kind of a follow-up question to that was, have you ever found an instance where the culture was just horrible, but the output was really high?
I can't recall, to answer your second question.
Yeah.
I'm going through I can't recall a situation where the culture was poor, but the outputs, the financial KPIs, were in the top quartile. I honestly can't think of one restaurant, whether it's Fridays or Legal Seafoods or whatever,
Yeah.
even here at USHG.
Yeah.
There's typically a very high correlation between a poor culture and poor results.
Yeah.
Darden, which again, massive organization, they did a study, analytical financial rigor study on the top 20% of their restaurants.
Yeah.
And the one correlation was GM tenure.
Oh, really?
So if you had a GM that had been in the restaurant for a long period of time,
Yeah.
that restaurant was more likely to outperform its peer group than not.
Interesting.
And so that's point number one. And I think when I think about a culture, I think it's all within the four walls of the restaurant, right? The culture is a component of both great leadership,
Yeah.
or not so great, and great management. And there's a clear distinction between the two. You
Yeah.
need both. Companies like USHG, a brand like Daily Provisions, Red Lobster, you have great management practices and systems.
Right.
How to do inventory, how to interview employees, how to set up the line. They're standardized whether we open in Bethesda, Maryland or Back Bay, Boston, right? That's the management when we do inventory. That's structured and standardized.
Right.
The leadership comes in with the presence of the general manager and with his or her voice, their ability to coach, teach, and nurture people every single day.
Yeah.
Their ability, we say a lot at Union Square Hospitality, to connect dots, which is our way of talking about the power of learning about our guests, their needs and their wants. So I draw a distinction between very effective management practices and processes and systems,
Yeah.
and then great leadership.
Ah, that's so interesting. You know, I'm trying to figure. I'm new in my leadership journey, and I find myself trying not. I find myself getting stuck because sometimes I'm managing, then I'm leading, then I'm managing, then I'm leading, then I'm managing, then I'm leading, and it's hard to go from, you know, hey, you know, the Rethink app is not up and running, and we need to get that up by Friday. So can you do this and XYZ to execute it, so we can report to the board on our numbers by the end of the week? To like imagine the vision of if we could actually have this app completely autonomous and these kind of things. And it's really hard to oscillate. Is it possible to oscillate back and forth, manager leader, or is it best to delegate management and focus on leadership?
Well, I would say in our roles, it's best to lead.
Yeah.
Now, I do spend time in managing.
Yeah.
Right, and for me, that takes the shape of being in a restaurant with our leaders, and I'm tasting food. I'm looking at the ambiance. I'm looking at employee uniforms. Typically, I do that with one of the two presidents that run our businesses.
Yeah.
Occasionally, I'll go and visit a restaurant by myself, but primarily my job as the CEO is to lead the organization.
Yeah.
We're all evolving. I'm constantly evolving, and Danny and I were literally having a conversation yesterday about the role of the leader. In order to get better, you have to constantly evolve.
Yeah.
And we've started talking about this unique concept, and we call it to change your grip. And if you golf or play tennis, you may have a great swing and a great grip that has served you well. Maybe you've won a handful of tournaments. But as you get older, the landscape changes, younger players.
Yeah.
In order for you to stay in the top performance, you have to learn a new grip.
I love that.
I've been the CEO now 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And I hope that I'm servicing all the people that I serve correctly and they're happy. But I also know in order for me and the organization to grow and evolve, I have to change my grip.
Yeah.
And if you understand this concept, it is the concept of unlearning a habit or a grip that you've had that has served you well,
Yeah.
and then trying to learn something new.
Yeah.
And that is really hard to do.
Yeah.
and I'll just keep building on this. I hope this is helpful.
No, this is incredible.
Along this concept of changing your grip is balancing the difference between micromanaging and micro caring.
Oh, I love that.
Right. My team has said to me, Chip, we love you,
Yeah.
but give us the freedom to make decisions and run whatever business, finance, accounting, right? I care a lot about talent development, succession planning, people. That comes from my days in HR.
Yeah.
My chief people officer is like, Chip, you both micro care and you micromanage,
Yeah.
right? And so it's understanding and sharing with my team that I do care,
Yeah.
but it's also for me to have this own awakening to say, make sure that your micro care doesn't turn into micromanage,
Yeah.
so that you can be the leader to think about the business a year from today and 2 years today. If you're micromanaging,
Yeah.
you can't be the strategist that we need you to be.
I'm guilty of that. I'm definitely guilty of that.
Right?
I get too in, and I get too in the weeds, and I get too, I'm just excited about it, and I do care. I really care about
That's
every
right.
little detail of this
Yeah.
place, but I get so fired up about it, and then they're like, Matt, can you go on vacation? Like, when's that baby coming? I get that a lot. When's parental leave? Like,
It's hard to do. You've
It's
created
really-
this.
Yeah.
And, Danny is the founder and the creator of Union Square Hospitality Group.
Yeah.
And so he so deeply cares.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's fun to have these conversations about micromanaging, micro care, and changing your grip. And they're all part of in my point of view, the evolution of a functional leader.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, I cannot believe they let me run this place 8 years ago. I'm telling you, like 5 years ago. I look back and I'm so blessed. I think that the best part of my job is that I get to spend time with really, really smart people like yourself who give me really, really good advice. And I try to just be like this funnel that takes it all in and prioritizes it. And then I'm still stuck on the thought to action. So we talk about this at Rethink all the time.
Yeah.
And we say, what's the fastest route to the common goal? The biggest challenge for me has been when I come from fine dining.
Yep.
And you come in there and you're like, okay, you're gonna make carrot puree, you're gonna make carrot puree as fast and as good as you humanly possibly can. You're gonna pre-cut the carrots, everything's gonna be ready to go, everything's gonna be prepped. And then I moved into office culture, and it's like, okay, we're gonna onboard a new restaurant. Okay, what restaurant? Blah blah blah. This and that. We go. It's like 30 minutes, but then like every minute that we are not actually onboarding that restaurant, the enthusiasm and the complexity of that action increases.
Absolutely.
And it's exhausting. And so I find myself spending a lot of my time, which is like, what's the deadline? 2 months? Nope, let's do it today. I find myself, so how do you, especially coming into a new organization, like go in and say, we don't need to do that, or how do you cut that time down between, any tricks you can give me for cutting down the thought to action process?
I think you're approaching it the right way in the example that you just shared, which is lending your voice and your perspective to make sure that great is not how do I get this right?
Great's not the enemy of good.
Not the enemy of good,
yeah.
right? We were challenged literally today on a new item that's supposed to go on the daily provisions menu.
Yeah.
And so it's this debate about what should the price be, and it doesn't really fit in our cogs, and should we have a meeting, and then should we have another meeting, and let's grab the head of FP&A, and I'm like, guys, let's just set a date, okay?
Yeah.
And we'll set a price. So for me, it's knowing when to step in to push people outside of maybe their comfort zone.
Yep.
And to make sure that we're not trying to get it, my term, all the way to bright every time. Because in our delay, what we're actually doing is we're doing a disservice to the public, to our guests, who want new news, new product news, new food news, and new innovation.
100%.
And so I would say keep doing keep doing that, right?
Hear
Pushing.
that, guys?
Yeah.
But no, because I think about it. I think about that all the time, and that minutia. That let's bring this person in. It's, and I also I've been thinking a lot about this. It's just, I don't know. I was watching. Oh God, what's it called? Not Cut Jones. I can't remember what it's called now. I'm blanking out. But it's anyway. There's a quote in a movie that says, "I don't like to think about hypotheticals because the world is vexing enough as it is."
Yeah.
We don't. We have 0.00001% of the information.
Right.
So we don't know. You might price that thing, and people, it's so cheap. I can't believe it's there. And I feel like a lot of people in offices, we spend time strategizing quite a bit.
Yep.
But the world will react the way the world react no matter what.
That's right.
I don't know. I think about this all the time. So any tips on how to cut out the what if game or, the brand risk game? Everything's a brand risk, and I would really appreciate
the other thing that it sounds like you have here, and we talk a lot about, is the makeup of the leadership team. 'Cause each member has a different personality trait and style, and you want a healthy balance, right? I am largely because of my time at Darden, I like to really think and cogitate and ponder. I like a lot of analytical rigor. My chief people officer, God bless her, Patty Simpson, who is brilliant, she's like, okay, Chip, let's go, let's make a decision, right? And so having your leadership team that is aware of the styles of each other, and then that you want complementary skills, right? So we have a leadership team of 9 individuals. If I had all leaders like myself who like to think and ponder, and I'll get back to you on the weekend, we wouldn't get anything done.
Right.
But I've got a handful of leaders, including Patty, who's like, all right, guys. We could analyze this for another week. But we got.
I'm Patty.
You're Patty. That's right. Yeah.
I'm Patty. This is Chip. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
And it's good. No, the balance is really important. And I got to say, my team has prevented me from making and my board, God bless my board, has made numerous disastrous mistakes. And the way that we think about it here is the charity is not for us.
Right.
Everything we do is in service to our mission. Everything we do is for the community we serve. Our boss is the community we serve. We think about who we work for. We work for Father Mike in Ridgewood handing out meals. And so I think that sense of urgency that is in this office is that why we that. Because they're not scared of me. They're scared of Father Mike. He's a scary guy, but
got it.
Guy, but
yeah.
It's so interesting. All right, we might even get to question 3 here. This is really good. What? And I got to say one thing that you told me that my wife and I talked about, because I shared with you that I had a baby on the way, and you said the most beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You said, as soon as the baby's born, your wife turns into your partner.
Yeah.
And then when you send your kid to college, you get to fall in love with your wife all over again as your wife. And there's no segue to that. I just thought that was the most beautiful thing I ever heard. And I went home, I told her that directly. But and that's a good segue to this question is are there personal values that are guiding your principles that shape your leadership style and how you lead this organization?
Yeah, I think about the answer is yes, right? My personal values have been embedded into me by the experiences of kind of growing up, right? And so personal value for me is one of an individual, me, who has a high degree of curiosity. I once described it as an unquenchable thirst for knowledge. And so it's a personal value, characteristic trait that I have. I embedded, hopefully, into my children and into the organization as well. That was largely shaped by the fact that I was not a great student in school.
Really?
Not at all. I was your basic C- student.
Really?
I have some degree of learning disability. And,
that's crazy. I never would have thought that for a million years.
And so I have worked on this love of learning.
Yeah.
I read a lot of biographies. I read voraciously.
Yeah.
So that's number one, characteristic, personal value. The second one is I always aspire to be of service to others. that was largely influenced by watching my grandmother. My grandparents helped to raise me. And my grandmother, who was born in 1914 in Birmingham, Alabama, and she migrated to the Northeast. She had 6 kids. She had 15 grandkids, but she was always in service of others. And by that, I watched her, when the grandkids were around, service her husband, serve the grandkids, serve everyone first before she served herself. She was also a domestic. So she would take the bus 30 minutes north from the town that we essentially grew up in to a affluent white community, and she was a domestic. And so I watched my grandmother always be in service of others. And I took that into management. And with this, when I was a kitchen manager, I was in service of the dishwashers and the line cooks. I knew their roles because I had their roles. And I always want to be of service of others. Joy comes when to me, when others are succeeding and prospering, and that work for them is a sense of fulfillment and pride.
That's my favorite part of the job, by far, is watching somebody, working with somebody, coaching somebody, and watching their confidence build, the ideas start to come out, the action, and just, oh no, I totally agree. I totally agree. And obviously, I'll do here all day is serve people, so.
Exactly. And I would say the last, which honestly, and I'm unapologetic about this, is the value of love, right? It's just not used often in business. You rarely hear, and I don't get it right every time, right? But I can stand and sit in front of you and say, as a leader and a CEO, I think about the art and the importance of loving what you do, loving the workforce, and showing admiration and respect for what they do. And you've been in the restaurant business. I have a great job, but the work's done by the porters in Gramercy Tavern, right?
100%.
The bartenders at Gramercy Union Square Cafe, the work's done by them. It's not done by me and Danny, right? And so I have so much love and appreciation for the people who do the work each and every day. And you know, those 3 values, your question about me, service, love, curiosity, are what attracted me to Danny Meyer and USHG.
Wow.
All right, I got to tell this story.
All right, let's go.
We can say as long as we want.
All right, let's do it.
And this is on being of service and love. Did I ever tell you the story? So my very first day on the job, May 21st, 2019. Danny and I had a very short courtship, 2 phone calls, 1 in-person interview.
Oh, wow.
And so on May 20th, 2019, I was living in Orlando. I flew to New York. Danny said, you're going to stay at the Gramercy Park Hotel. I want to have breakfast with you at Mylino on your very first day. You can imagine my first day with this iconic leader, this brilliant organization. I slept maybe 2.5 hours. I woke up at 5. All right, might as well start getting dressed. I put on a blue shirt. I'm like, nope, I don't like that. I changed to a white shirt. I was nervous. I had all this nervous energy. I'm putting on my jacket. Okay, Chip, don't spill coffee on Danny. Don't say anything stupid. So I go down the elevator. Danny said, meet me at 8:30. Inside Mylino. You've been in Mylino in the Gramercy Park Hotel. It was there. And Danny positions himself in the restaurant where he can see me come through the front door. And so he's in a conversation with someone else that works for the company. He sees me come through, and his eyes lit up really wide. And a big smile came, like this really big smile. I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. It's odd, but it's cool. And he pops up out of his chair, and he starts to walk very briskly toward me. There's a sense of gleefulness and happiness with just me, like me. And so I do what every person does on their first day. I go to extend my arm to shake Danny's hand. Danny comes closer to me. He pushes my arm away. Matt, he hugs me.
I love
like
that.
a hug like I get from my brother. And as he's hugging, we're face to face. I'm sorry, I get animated. We're hugging. And I say to myself, who the fuck hugs on the first day? Like, have you ever, Who hugs on the first day of a job?
Yeah.
Danny Meyer.
I love that.
That's culture. That's being of service of people. He was setting the tone for the very first day that this is the environment that I'm welcoming you into.
And the fact he was, I'm sure you were 15 minutes early.
Oh, God,
and he
yeah.
was there. He was there.
Yeah.
You know, that intentionality of being present and being there and welcoming people that way is just, it's so key. I mean, that's beautiful. I learned a lot. I learned a lot from getting to work with him and COVID a little bit, and a lot of 11 Madison Park's kind of energy still comes from there as well.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's still alive today. I apologize to all the listeners for my excessive use of profanity, but it was literally what was going through my head.
I love that. I absolutely love that. It's so energizing. You have time for one more question?
Absolutely. I have time for 3 more questions. I enjoy this.
That's good. Good. What do you see changing most? Talking about evolution.
Yeah.
So you've seen TGI Fridays, Darden, to where you are today, and you've seen it change a lot.
Sure.
What do you see 3 years, 5 years, and then past that?
Yeah. It's hard to predict past 5 years. We'll comment on a couple things.
Yeah.
I see, and this is not a new trend, but I'm going to see it continue to accelerate, is, for the lack of a better term, just global cuisine, right? You see it obviously here in New York and San Francisco, but global cuisine in Altoona, Pennsylvania, right? Or Albany, New York. I think whether it's Spanish cuisine, African cuisine is hot these days, that Americans will continue to have this appetite for international and global cuisines. Obviously, Italian and French have been part of the mainstay for the past, 70, 90 years.
Yeah,
But
classics.
what's happening, classics, exactly right, is Indian cuisine, Thai cuisine, again, African cuisine, and I think we're going to start to see the influence, and we are, of South American cuisine. And then you're starting to see the fusion of multiple cuisines. Like, we know this because we're in the industry, but French and Thai, or French and Vietnamese, right?
Yep.
And so for me, that's number one. Number two, I think you're going to continue to see technology, AI, play a critical role in our industry.
How so?
So I think we are starting to see AI being deployed not so much in the front of the house, guest facing, but in the home offices, if you will, right? That you'll be able to use AI to accelerate a menu strategy or menu layout. We'll be able to use AI to accelerate how we do diligence on legal matters.
Yep.
Researching legal related things. It could be employment law, employment practices, real estate deals. And so I think you'll see AI being deployed heavily for modeling, right? So how do you model a new restaurant in a new market with all the various variables? And I believe that AI will enable USHG and other companies to get answers faster than in the past. I think with regard to technology, you will continue to see things, and this is not new, but how do you create an environment where it's payment, guest pain points, which has been a problem in our industry for 50 years.
Yep.
I've had a wonderful experience, and when I'm ready to pay, I got to look for the server and my rubbernecking around. It's a pain point. And so companies, including USHG, are creating models that are not too dissimilar from Uber.
Yeah.
So that when you get out of an Uber, there's no transaction. You just get up and go.
Love that. I love that. And the awkwardness of, oh, I got this. No, you got this. And blah, blah, blah. You know, like that whole thing. Like, it really does ruin a great experience, especially if it's done poorly.
Yeah,
like I've had a great time at a restaurant, and then you get the check and you're waiting for a pen and you can't find your server, and like, you know, it just ruins the whole thing.
There's a New York-based company called Bilt, B-I-L-T. They have a brilliant entrepreneur that has founded that. They are helping us to improve the payment process.
Is this the mortgage payment, the rent and mortgage payment company?
That's exactly right.
Exactly right, yeah.
And so they've been a great strategic partner. and we are beginning to integrate their essentially get up and go payment.
Yeah.
The other thing about technology and AI is guest data. Like, how can we get and utilize guest data so that when the server approaches the table, they don't say, "Hi, Mr. Wade, what kind of wine can I get you?" They already know that I like bourbon.
Yep.
And then they can start from that point of view.
Yeah.
Imagine personalizing your visit and having so much guest data
Yeah.
that you strip away all the nonsense of, do you want beer? Do you want wine? We've seen Chip come in the Union Square Hospitality 6 times over a year period.
Yep.
And 5 of the 6 times he's had bourbon.
Yep.
And so let's just start with, we have a great bourbon cocktail that our team has created, or would you like your normal? And then we can expedite. So I see that happening. And the last thing I think, and this is a result of COVID,
Yeah.
is we have to value and appreciate the consumer's time. And so it was very common for a guest at Union Square Cafe, Gramercy Tavern, the Modern. You could have a 2.5-hour lunch and no one would think anything about it.
Right.
COVID came and it changed the dynamic of how people value their time, obviously when they work, so that's changed as well.
Right.
More people are working from home. And so as a result of COVID, I think you're going to continue to see shifts in how people dine in casual and fine dining restaurants.
Like when they dine or
And
how long?
when
Oh,
they
okay.
dine, right? So today, pre-COVID, Friday was our busiest happy hour period.
Yeah.
Thursday has now become the new Friday.
Yes, that is.
Thursday is the new Friday.
Yeah.
So that has changed. The other thing that has changed with significant portion of the U.S. population office now working from home on Mondays and Fridays. People are coming to the office Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday generally.
Yeah.
What we're seeing is our happy hours are starting earlier. There's no boss to supervise. So if I clock
Happy hours
out,
start at 3:30. Is that what you guys are? That's why we're 5 days a week now.
it's not uncommon to see Union Square Cafe or Gramercy fill up at 4:30.
Really?
People are leaving they're leaving their home office at 4.
See, that scares me. I think that's a very scary signal.
Yeah.
I really, because I worried about the work from home thing, and I think if AI is so powerful,
Yeah.
it is so powerful, and if you're at happy hour at 4:00 and I can choose a robot, it's going to accelerate that. You know what I mean? I think that's a very scary thing. Anything around inventory management and projecting like what you're going to need to buy? Like, has that hit yet? Like,
Oh, absolutely. I think we're using new inventory management systems. It'll come later with regard to AI,
Yeah.
but I think we're using, particularly on daily provisions, which is as you know, an all-day 3-part neighborhood cafe, but we have 12 of them. We haven't replicated anything in the fine dining, but in a replicated brand, you need a great inventory management system.
Right.
So that it saves office time for the managers so they can get the hell out of the office.
Right.
And then spend more time in the cafes, more time with the guests.
and being able to project out, because I do think, one thing I love Madison Park I thought was so interesting is, you could get the duck or you could get the other protein. And there was 100 people that came to the restaurant every night. And when I started there, I was like, can I get the data from, the last 2 weeks of what people were ordering so I could see like the trend? We don't have that.
Yeah.
But we know. We just kind of know what kind of. But I think that with ordering in the future, with enough data, you could get it down to like, within 10%.
You're exactly right. What is starting to happen in our industry, and usually we follow these trends from retail stores, right? So when you scan a Tide at your local supermarket, it's scanned in the point of sale systems that is integrated with the back office inventory system, and they communicate with each other. So management doesn't have to go into the back of the retail store to count the bottles of Tide.
Yeah.
It's already integrated.
Yeah.
And then it's essentially self-orders, because the point of sale system is talking to the inventory management system.
Yeah.
And I believe I know that's happening today in large chains, large fast food chains, and that trend will continue in the fast casual, may not follow suit in the fine dining, but there'll be other models like that we can apply to the fine dining world.
It's exciting. I mean, we like this stuff because of our commitment to sustainability.
Yeah.
And that's where it all comes from. It's
That's
just
right.
mismanaged ordering systems.
Yeah.
All right, how about one more?
I'm in service of you, my friend.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I want to go back to culture one last time, just like this. Okay, what are some of the absolute hardest situations? There's a couple of examples of situations where you faced really, really hard culture. You talked about the issue where you finally fired the GM and you
Yep.
got him out. But so you're there, GM's gone. Then how do you start to rebuild that culture? What are the first steps to do that? And what are some of the hardest challenges you've faced in shaping a good culture?
The hardest challenges are always around people.
Yeah.
People and culture are inextricably tied together. And then the tough decisions. So I'll answer your question by sharing a story. Any business, one of the hardest challenges in our industry is either opening or closing a restaurant. And we had the very tough decision to close a restaurant 2 years ago, Blue Smoke. And if you know the brand, of course you do know the brand.
Yeah.
Many could argue, that Danny was so instrumental in bringing great barbecue to New York City over 25 years ago.
Big Apple Barbecue.
Big Apple Barbecue, etc. Danny created along with others, Richard Carrain, who was his partner, the concept of Blue Smoke. And when I joined, we had 4, including some at the airport.
Yep.
The original one sadly closed during the pandemic.
Where was the original one?
On 27th Street in Flatiron.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Park Avenue and 27th, just off, right? Then we had one in Battery Park. And it was for a lot of reasons we made the tough decision to close.
Yeah.
And so making that decision is a cultural decision, because people start to worry about the vibrancy of Union Square Cafe, Union Square Hospitality Group, I should say. Is there something wrong with the business? You had probably 60 employees, so what's going to happen to them? In a business that is, particularly Union Square Hospitality Group, high touch.
Yeah.
A lot of love. I shared that story. Closing a restaurant could tear away at the fabric of the culture.
Yeah.
So we have to do a very good job of communicating to our staff, our vendors, our suppliers, what we're doing and why we're doing.
How did you do that? How did you get that message out?
One-on-one with the key leaders first, these personal conversations with the manager teams. There are times when we would call vendors individually, right? It didn't come via an email. I walked somewhat on a related story. We were working on a deal in South Miami, and then I finally said, I don't think we're ready to go to Miami.
Yeah.
And so I personally called the landlord and said, I know we have a signed letter of intent.
Yeah.
And I know your team and my team have been going down the field. Honestly, Matt, we were at the 20-yard line, maybe 15.
Oh, wow.
And so this is about culture, right? And doing the right things. And I called this gentleman and said, you're probably not going to like what I have to share with you. I'd never met him.
Wow.
But this is part of culture, and I could not send that message via email.
Yeah, of course.
So anyway, back to Blue Smoke. We told our folks individually, and then the magic of Danny saying, just as you celebrate the opening of a restaurant, let's celebrate the closing of a restaurant.
I love that.
And so we actually had 3 closing parties.
Oh, really?
So again, this is the importance of culture. And you're in the restaurant business. Many of your listeners know this, right? You meet your spouse, your significant other. People fall in love in a restaurant. So we threw a party first for our most loyal guests. And we invited pit masters from across the country who helped us create recipes, people that we admire. Come cook at Blue Smoke in Battery Park. This was our gift to the community.
Yeah.
We said to the community, we're going to close, but before we close, we want to give you one last gift. Then we threw a party for former employees. Some who had, people came from Rhode Island, people came from the Midwest, people came from the South.
Yeah.
And we threw a party for former employees. And then we threw a party for existing employees. And
that's poetic.
It is poetic. It's part of the culture. It builds on the culture. Now, most organizations wouldn't do that, right?
Yeah.
I came from Darden. It's a great company, but no one would spend $100,000 on an underperforming restaurant that you knew you wanted to close.
Yeah.
But Danny's love and understanding of how important culture is. Every employee that worked inside MoMA, that worked at Gramercy Tavern, that worked at Daily Provisions, they knew of this going away party. Whether they had the chance to go or not, they're like, this organization really does care about us.
Wow, so you turned it into something that didn't even have a shot at hurting the culture, but actually improved it.
I believe so, absolutely.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And so,
has anybody taken suit on that? Have you heard of anybody replicating that?
I have to imagine people have, but I can't imagine.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
I've heard of like, the owners are closing the restaurant and it's like kind of like a single owner spot and they're throwing one last banger of a party. But like I haven't heard of like, we're going to invite the vendors and the previous guests and stuff.
Yeah. So you have to, I love talking about culture. You just have to keep working at it.
Yeah, like an infant.
And you have to keep investing. At the core of culture, I believe, is investing in the culture, by definition, investing in your people.
Yeah, it's beautiful, Chip.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Well, my last question, which I love, and it's a simple question, but I actually think the best advice I ever got was be careful who you take advice from.
Okay.
Because I think it's really good. But what is the best piece of advice, or a couple pieces of advice that you really kind of, when you go to, you're like, yep, like that really resonate with you and you use a lot? Something we can all take home.
I think I'll share two. And I give this advice as it was given to me. The best, number one is just to stay curious and remain, my term, this unquenchable thirst for knowledge. And I know a lot of people say that.
Yeah.
As you and I have been on this journey together for however long, in this podcast, I use a lot of stories to help emphasize.
Yeah.
When I was a young man, I was a kitchen manager in Tarrytown, New York, and I know we're running over time, but
No, we're fine.
I kept
you
saying
guys can stay late.
I kept saying to my bosses, when are you going to promote me? When are you going to promote me?
Yeah.
And I was a pest.
Yeah.
And then finally this leader sat down with me and he said, Chip, we're not going to promote you. You don't think like a GM. You don't act like a GM. You don't dress like a GM. That was a kick in the belly. So here's the powerful story, and this is the story about curiosity.
Yeah.
He said, Chip, can you tell me what a typical Tuesday is? So I said, okay, a typical Tuesday for me as a kitchen manager, I come in at 7. My schedule was a 10-hour shift, 7 to 5.
Yeah.
As you and I both know, and our listeners know, you're in the restaurant business. The 7 to 5 is really a 7 to 6:30.
Yeah.
He said, what time do you get home? I said, I get home at 7. He goes, great, Chip. What do you do when you get home? I said, well, I grab a beer or two. I'm 25 years old, right?
Yeah.
I grab a beer or two. I cook dinner. I take a shower. He goes, great. When are you done all the shit, Chip? And I said, I'm done everything by 8. He said, great. What time do you go to bed? At 25, 26, I was just a huge Dave Letterman fan. Every night I watched Dave Letterman.
Yeah.
He goes, okay. I didn't tell him that story. He said, what time do you go to bed? I said, I go to bed at 1:30.
Yeah.
He goes, great. So you're done all your chores at 8, showered, eat dinner, 2 beers.
Yeah.
You go to bed at 1:30.
Yeah.
What do you do between 8 and 1:30?
Yeah.
I put my head down sheepishly and I said, I watch TV. He said, excuse me? I said, I watch TV. And he said, Chip, shut off your goddamn TV. Have you ever read the Wall Street Journal? Are you familiar with the Harvard Business Review? This is before iPads and YouTube and et cetera, et cetera. He said, have you ever read a biography about a CEO? Like, grow your brain. So lesson number one is stay curious.
I love that.
The second lesson I learned from a friend and mentor, gentleman, is iconic leader in our industry called Phil Hickey. I just watched his behavior. Phil was on the board of Red Lobster. I probably shouldn't say this, but I've already opened the door, so I might as well let myself in. Phil was a servant leader. He'd worked in almost every position. Phil's 10, 12 years my senior. And Phil and I were doing restaurant visits, and Phil would come into a restaurant, a Red Lobster, and like laser-like focus would go to the dish stand. I mean, he exchanged pleasantries with the managers and say hello to the host, but he's like, I'm going to go to the dishwasher. I've watched Phil reach into his pocket, shake someone's hand with $50, and shake the hand of a dishwasher.
Yeah.
Because no one's supposed to know that. You're not supposed to, as a board member, give.
Slipping cash.
It's like, he just showed so much love and appreciation for arguably the hardest job in our industry.
Yeah.
And I watched Phil do that. And as someone that put myself through college, at least year one, as a dishwasher, I'm like, I'm learning the art of being a good leader.
Yeah.
And lesson number two is just like, was a reinforcement of value and respect the people that do the work.
I love that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that.
I owe that to Phil Hickey. Yeah.
Well, look, thank you so much for being here. I know you're busy, and I just really appreciate the time. And every time we talk, I learn so much. And that sentiment you gave as me and my wife enter our, parenting years is it's really one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard.
Sir.
So thank you.
I've enjoyed it.